The Uganda Martyrs were a group of young men, both Christian and Muslim, who were executed between 1885 and 1887 for defending their faith. Their deaths were ordered by Kabaka Mwanga, the king of Buganda. Initially, there were 22 Catholic martyrs, but 2 more were killed in 1918 in Paimol, northern Uganda, bringing the total to 24. These 2 men, Daudi Okello, a catechist, and his assistant Yildo Irwa, were persecuted and brutally murdered by raiders. Aside from the 22 Catholic martyrs, 23 Anglicans and a few Muslims also met their fate. Most of the martyrs executed by Kabaka Mwanga were palace servants. 13 of the Roman Catholic martyrs were burnt at Namugongo, while the remaining 9 were killed in different locations. On November 15, 1885, Joseph Mukasa Balikudembe, leader of the Christians at the king's palace, was beheaded and burnt at Nakavubo Swamp. He had pleaded for the life of Bishop James Hannington, an Anglican missionary who entered Buganda from the forbidden eastern side. The major executions began on May 25, 1886, at the King's Royal Enclosure in Munyonyo. Denis Sebugwawo was speared, followed by Andrew Kagwa. On May 26th, Pontian Ngondwe was killed by the palace chief executioner, Mukajanga, and his corpse was dismembered and scattered. On May 27th, Athanasius Bazakuketa volunteered to be executed at Mengo Hill, where Joseph Balikudembe was earlier killed. Several other Christians who refused to renounce their faith were rounded up and marched to Namugongo for execution. They were tied together with slave yokes and cords on their feet and necks. Among them were Catholic martyrs, 23 Anglicans, and 6 prisoners on death row for unrelated crimes. Along the way, Matthias Kalemba Mulumba refused to walk further at Old Kampala and requested to be executed immediately. His hands, legs, and some parts of his back were cut off, and he died 3 days later from thirst. The rest continued to Namugongo, where Gonzaga Gonza collapsed and was speared to death at Lubawo Hill. The Uganda martyrs arrived at Namugongo, but were confined for 7 days while preparations for their execution were made. On June 3, 1886, Charles Lwanga was chosen for ritual sacrifice, wrapped in papyrus reeds, and burnt to death. Around midday, the remaining martyrs were burnt to death at Namugongo, including Adolphus Mukasa Ludigo, Achilles Kiwanuka, Bruno Serunkuma, Ambrose Kibuka, James Kirigwajo, Mbaga Tuzinde, Mukasa Kiriwawanvu, Mugaga, and Kizito, the youngest martyr. The Uganda martyrs who were taken to Namugongo eventually died, but their bodies did not turn to ashes. The executioners tried to burn the corpses to ashes but failed, abandoning the site. Many executioners were so moved by the martyrs' willingness to die and their songs of praise that they abandoned their roles. 6 months later, 3 Christians secretly retrieved the remains of Charles Lwanga and took them to Father Simeon Lourdel, who buried them in Nabulagala. The remains were later relocated due to political instability, but were eventually brought back for veneration at the Namugongo Martyrs Shrine, where they serve as a reminder of the Uganda Martyrs' bravery.